Hey guys, so we often talk about qualifying for Boston as this big pie in the sky goal for us marathon runners, right? But that is not the end all be all in goals for marathon runners. It could just be reaching your potential, giving it your best in the marathon, whatever that might be, or going beyond qualifying for Boston and seeing what else you can give. So this is really about that. My circumstances and my story from starting at a 5-hour marathoner to qualifying for Boston, for getting to run Boston and qualifying for Boston at Boston and now beyond, and really what it takes to get there. So as opposed to just training specifics in a training cycle, which I've talked about before, this is really going to touch more on those mindset slash training overall shifts through the years that you need to do in order to make this happen for you. So I'm going to get into those, but I want to start out with a story for you guys, just so you can have an understanding of how I got to where I am right now. So back in 2017, my husband and I decided to run a marathon together. It had been 10 years since I had run a marathon, and he had run a marathon a couple years prior and just really not happy with the result. And having 3 small children, it was just a nice way to kind of do something for ourselves and then have an excuse to get away for weekend as well. And at that time, qualifying for Boston was not on my radar whatsoever. I didn't even realize, honestly, it was a thing until I started following different running Instagrammers just for inspiration and just to get tips and things like that, that I started to see this common theme that qualifying for Boston was a really big deal. That either these people were on a quest to qualify for Boston themselves or they already had, and people really looked up to that. And so, it just kind of got my wheels turning, even though that hadn't been a goal of mine. And I just thought, I don't know, what does it take to qualify for Boston? So, of course, I did the next obvious thing. I went to the BAA website and looked up those qualifying times. So I was 37 at the time, and what I needed to qualify was a 340, which since has changed for that age group to 335. But even at that 340, my initial reaction was, there is no freaking way. You guys, I had run a marathon when I was 27. My best time was 4 hours and 49 minutes. So I had to take off an hour and 9 minutes, and not even that, but really 340 wasn't going to be enough. Then you start reading around and you have to have some sort of buffer. You have to have a time under the cutoff, et cetera, et cetera. And really that thought completely just went out of my brain. It was immediately like the thought of, this will never be me, basically. So went on about my training, ran that 2017 marathon at Twin Cities with my husband. And I finished with a 3:48. So I took off an hour and 1 minute from my best time when I was way, way younger. And in that moment, I would say a fire was lit. Like, hey, maybe this isn't as impossible as I once thought that it was. So fast forward to 2018, and I worked my tail off trying to qualify for Boston. And after a failed attempt, I did end up doing that at the end of that year. You can watch more on that here, where I talk more about what to do kind of within that training cycle, what needs to happen in order to really bump up your time a lot. And it wasn't until this year, you guys, 2022, where I actually got to finally run the Boston Marathon, where I qualified again. And so as opposed to just talking about what to change in a training cycle, I really want to talk to you about these shifts that you're going to have to make to reach those big goals in the marathon. And you're thinking, how the heck can I do that? How can I get maybe all of this time off my marathon and be in a position to qualify for Boston or whatever big goal it is you might have for yourself? I want to talk to you guys about these major shifts that you're going to have to make. These are the 5 things that I really want you guys to think about and consider when you decide, am I willing to do whatever it takes? Am I willing to go the extra that other people aren't to reach these big goals that I have for myself? All right, so number 1 is resist the status quo. So if you want big payoffs in your running, you can't just keep doing what everybody else thinks is normal. You can't just keep doing the same things you've always done or doing things the same way that everybody else does them. You have to take the next step and really go outside the norm. So here's an example of that. So I've gone to Orange Theory for a really, really long time. Love the workout. Before I was running marathons, back to that distance in my 30s after having kids, it was my workout of choice. And yeah, Orange Theory would be my workout for the day. It's a hard workout for an hour, and that is what most people do. So resisting the status quo, an example here would be in marathon training, is that I would run the 2.5 miles to Orange Theory, work out for an hour at Orange Theory, and then run the 2.5 miles at home. Or I would go to Orange Theory and run 6 miles after Orange Theory. And you guys, I would literally have people say to me, because they'd see me starting to run off or getting ready to run off after Orange Theory, like, you are crazy. Like, you're gonna work out again after doing that super hard workout? And that is what it takes. Those are the types of things I'm talking about. So I had this Orange Theory coach. He always had this quote that I absolutely loved. And it's, unordinary actions bring extraordinary results. And I have thought about this quote so many times over the years when I have to ask myself, why am I doing this? Why do I put myself in these crazy situations? And it's because I want extraordinary results for myself, and I know that that's what you want for yourself too. So the Orange Theory thing is just an example. You can be thinking about how you might be pushing beyond what you've done in the past or what others would think and see as normal. Okay, number 2 is embrace the boring. So the behind the scenes, guys, of the top performer isn't sexy. So I know what we see on social media is that beautiful photo finish, and that is really just the culmination of all the boring stuff and hard work that it took to get to that point. And we've talked about on this channel before that 80% of your running should be at an easy pace. And the truth of the matter, guys, is that's not exciting. It does get boring. It does get monotonous. But the people who reach their goals and keep pushing their potential further and further and further are the ones who are able to lean into the boring and accept that this is the part of the process that's going to get them to their absolute best. So here are some examples of what I mean by this. The easy long run. Yep, going out for 20 miles, running at an easy pace is not exciting. It can get pretty boring. And I have a video about how to break up the boredom, so I'll link that, but sometimes you just can't get around it. It's really not something that most people are probably looking forward to all the time. Doing the same strength workouts week after week. Yes, maybe you're working in a progressive overload situation, but you're continuing to do the same exercises because you know that those are the exercises that are going to strengthen your body to be able to get the best out of yourself with your running and stay injury free. So on top of that is those PT exercises that your PT has maybe given you. Just last night, guys, I'm using my band to rotate my foot back and forth, back and forth. And in my mind, I'm like, this is so boring, but I want my foot to feel better. And so I am willing to do these because my PT told me that they work and I trust him. Okay, next, form drills. Guys, these are the things that are going to allow you to be more efficient as a runner, have better form, prep you for going out for that run, etc. And there's nothing fun or exciting about them most times. And they take up extra time when you're thinking, can't I just skip these? When nope, if you want the best out of yourself, you gotta do them. Okay, and another one is just eating the same things because that's what fuels you best. I'm not saying you can't ever have the fun stuff, but day in and day out, the people who are performing really, really well are very specific about what they're doing with their nutrition because they know it is fueling them their very best to get the best out of themselves. And guys, there are more. Those are just some top examples so you can understand what I mean. Number 3 is discipline is greater than motivation. So I hear this a lot that other people who maybe aren't runners or don't like running, force themselves to run, they assume that since I'm a running coach, since I like marathons, that I'm motivated all the time to get out the door for my run. And that is not the case. There's many times where I'm not motivated. I just don't even give myself the option to feel not motivated or motivated. Like it's happening no matter what because I am disciplined, it's on my schedule, and I told myself that I am going to do it. So it doesn't really matter whether I'm motivated or not. It just has to get done. So you have to have this major shift in the way that you think about your training, in that you are just incredibly disciplined and not waiting to be motivated. If you're waiting to be motivated, then it's not going to happen. You're going to have too many days that you end up skipping. It just doesn't work like that. So have that discipline, persistent mindset. And that's when you're going to start to see those big gains and making those major changes in what you're able to do with your running. Number 4 is thinking about having consistency over time. This is one of the biggest things that I see people not doing, and they keep coming back to training cycle after training cycle, wondering why they can't make any progress. That looks like this. They have a big training cycle for a fall marathon, and then they have their marathon in October, and they maybe do some sort of working out, but they hardly run because it's the winter months, it's snowing, they're not motivated like I talked about before. And then we're in March, and then finally they start training for something in spring. So they just had all of these months that they took away from their running. They have very low mileage, and they're wondering why it feels like they're starting back at scratch, because they are starting back at scratch, right? And so you've got to be thinking about consistency over time, year after year after year. Think about how maybe you can this year, let's say you run 1,000 miles this year. Next year, build that up by 10%. The next year, build it up 10% more. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, that's such a long time. Well, that is what it takes, guys. And that leads us into number 5, and that is that you need to think about your running from the perspective of this is a long game. We are not trying to start right now and then qualify for Boston or get your very best time or reach your absolute potential. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to work like that for most people. And I'm not saying that no one will ever qualify for Boston in one training cycle. And I've seen people do it, but they also have had a lot of consistency in the background leading up to that you don't realize. It wasn't just like they were an overnight sensation. There was so much legwork leading up to that, that it might seem to you as if, wow, everything they touch turns to gold. No, they're putting in the hard work that you just don't realize. They've already been thinking about this as a long-term game, even if maybe this is their first marathon and they qualify for Boston. So you need to think about this from a long-term perspective. And the people who come to me that ask me to coach them to qualify for Boston, and they say, I know this isn't going to happen right now. I realize I'm not there yet, but this is my 5-year plan. I love hearing that because I realize that these are the people who've put a lot of thought into this, and they truly are willing to do whatever it takes. They want to learn, they want to grow, they want to make progress over time, and they realize that this isn't just something that suddenly happens, that it takes time for the body to adapt. So I encourage you guys to really start thinking of these major shifts. Decide if this is worth it. Yeah, it's an insane amount of work. It takes a long time, but if it's something that really matters to you, then you'll go for it. So guys, I can't guarantee that you're going to qualify for Boston, and I can't guarantee that you're going to hit that marathon time goal that you've set for yourself. But what I can guarantee is that it's not going to happen if you don't try. And it's not going to happen if you keep doing things the same way that you've always done. So start thinking about what shifts you can make in your mindset and your training to start working towards that big goal that you have for yourself, and ultimately believe that it's possible. That's something big we didn't even talk about at all in this video. But you have to believe in yourself. Have the confidence that when you put in the work, this will happen for you.